And today we are going to be doing exploring feelings and emotions. And so this is a set of videos that I'll just be posting where we're going to be learning about emotions and feelings. I had separated them into different age groups, ages 7 to 12 and then 13 to 18. But for the intro, this is for ages 7 to 18. And then when we get to the activities and pieces like that, I'll be separating the videos. So I made a little presentation, so then that way you don't have to just look at my face the entire time. So I'll just get that started and then we'll kind of dive in. I have, underneath the video, I've had a link where it has a bunch of worksheets that you can go to and my sources for some of this stuff and where you can find that and do a little bit of research on your own, or sometimes they may explain something better than I do. And so then you can check that out after or even before each video. Okay. Okay, so emotions. The first thing I wanted to do was kind of talk about emotional intelligence, and that's an umbrella idea that we're going to get to eventually, but just keeping that in the back of your mind as we move forward. So emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, use, and manage our emotions. The next thing is, which is part of emotional intelligence, is emotional regulation. And so that's the ability to process and manage your emotions. Now, emotional intelligence, which we will get back to later, is can be referred to as EQ, and that's because intellectual intelligence is referred to as IQ or EI. It's up to you what you want to call it or what you reference it, but just so you understand that if it comes up later. Yeah, so emotional regulation is a part of emotional intelligence. And then emotions are short, intense feelings made up of three main parts that occur together. So these three parts are happening at the same time. It's not like one happens and then the other and then the other. They're all happening together. And so those three parts are experience, physiology, and behavior. So the experience is your situation. Sometimes can be what led to the emotion. And so it's your context, it's what's going on when that emotion occurs. The next is the physiological. So that's how your body is reacting and physically feeling out the emotion. And so, yeah, and then behavior. So how you outwardly are expressing your emotion, so how it's coming across. So the example I put is for the experience, someone called me stupid. What's happening inside my physiology is my heart starts racing. I'm holding back tears and my body feels warm. Sometimes when you feel embarrassed, your cheeks will go flush. They'll get a little pink, and that's because your physiology, your body's doing something because we're feeling something. And then your behavior, so the outward expressing, my shoulders might hunch. I am trying not to cry, and so I might look down as well to avoid eye contact, and you might see a little bit of tears in here, and my face might just kind of droop because I'm a little bit sad. So what it is I'm feeling is hurt. And so then Very Well Mind came up with this little picture, and it does a very good job of kind of showing that. So I want to include it here, and that's also in the links that you can get. And so you can read through their little write-up on this if that's a bit more helpful. So your subjective experience, so that's your own experience, what it is you're experiencing, the physiological response, so what it is your body's doing, and then your behavioral response, how it comes across. Cool. So a little branch on the physiological response. So the way our brains work is at the front, where it's highlighted in green, is your prefrontal cortex. And so that is the thinking brain. It's where you process stuff. It's where your logical brain kind of is, and it's where you problem solve. And so when you go into a fight, flight, or freeze, which I'll explain in a minute, when you go into that state, or your body has felt that you have been in danger, this part shuts off, and then the back of the brain, the limbic system, you don't even have to remember all the terms. It's just the back of the brain and the front of the brain. So this is the smart, learning, thinking brain, and this is the reactive back brain. And so that takes over, and then what it does is it prepares you for danger. And so that would be fight, flight, or freeze. And so fight is the threat response. So if you feel that there's danger, your body might on its own, like we kind of talked about where your cheeks go flush, it might on its own just start to prepare for a fight. And it's because it's a perceived danger. You feel like you might be in danger. So that's part of the sympathetic nervous system. Again, you don't have to remember terms. But what happens is you get a racing heart, a hot flash, and sweating, dizziness, sometimes nausea. So you can be moody, irritable, angry, feeling overwhelmed. You might not be able to concentrate. You might have poor judgment, because sometimes when you're feeling like you want to fight, when something hits you really hard, you just want to punch someone. And so you're not really thinking, because this part of your brain is offline. And so you might lash out. Yeah, explains that. Oh, and these drawings are Journey to Wellness. So this is an Instagram account that I highly recommend you follow. And so a lot of the stuff I'm showing you today is from their site. And they put together phenomenal drawings and explanations. So I just want to give them full credit. And so another part of the threat response when we feel like we might be in danger is flight. And so that's where our body does all these different things to prepare us to run away from danger. And so that might be anxious or racing thoughts. Your mind's running really fast. It's hard to concentrate because you're trying to prepare for any danger that might be coming. You avoid situations of fear, which is part of the flight, is that you run away. You don't want to be where you feel that the danger might be. And then you tend to withdraw from others, and you want to get out. The last one is freeze. And so freeze is, you might have like the racing heart, the hot flash, sweating, dizziness. And so what you do is your thinking brain, since it's offline, sometimes you just stop. And so you can think of the example where if you were asked to speak in public and you don't feel comfortable speaking in public, you just kind of, everything stops and you stop talking and you're like, oh my goodness, and you just freeze, hoping it'll go away. So some of that is a fear of judgment, thinking that everyone is laughing or judging you, worrying, nervousness, freezing, and you kind of shut down. So that was just a side branch of what the physiological response can be. And so that's the front of the brain and the back of the brain. And we'll get back to that a little bit later, but I just wanted to explain that. So here is it's called therapistaid.com, but they have a bunch of cool worksheets and a bunch of cool resources to better understand different topics that range from like emotions, anxiety, relationships, stuff like that. And there's a link to those in the little tab, so you can access those later. But this is an emotional wheel, and this is just, we typically know these basic words: the sad, the scared, the excited, happy, disgust, angry. But it gives us a few more words to delve into to better understand and describe our emotions. So, for example, excited has energetic, hyper, antsy. And then over here is a more thorough list of emotions. And so it goes through a few different ones where you want to sometimes pinpoint what that emotion is instead of just giving it a bland, I'm happy. Well, no, what is it? Maybe I'm content. Maybe I'm excited. Maybe I'm anxious. So all those different things. Here's another list. And this is the Journey to Wellness people again. They have visuals of what those might look like on your face and how you might be expressing those. And so that's the behavior piece of emotion, of what it might look like. And so I like this because this is just a good reference piece where you can sit there and go, my feelings chart. So today I am feeling, or right now I am feeling sarcastic, or irritated, or avoidant, or disappointed, or fear. And so you can go through that, and it's a good exercise to do later, but it's also really good just to kind of bring us back to what is it we're feeling. So emotions aren't good or bad. They are just signals that our body is bringing to our attention. And so this kind of has examples and explains it a little bit. So stress, the message that your body's trying to tell you is I need to slow down and I need a little bit of self-care. Sad. You know what? It's okay. I need love and to look for joy and gratitude. If you're feeling anxious, the message that your body's telling you is, I need calm right now. And so it's basically your body bringing our attention to something. So maybe letting you know that something is off kilter or out of balance. Something's off. I'm feeling something's going on. What is that? And what do I need to do with it? So this is, what is the feeling trying to tell me? And then remembering that emotions are like visitors and letting them come and go. So not telling yourself, I'm not allowed to be angry. I'm not allowed to be sad. You're allowed to have any emotion you want. It's the allowed part comes in with what you do with those emotions. So I'm allowed to be angry, but I'm not allowed to punch someone in the face because I'm angry. And so it's what we're doing with those emotions where the good or bad could come in. But knowing that what it is you're feeling, what emotions you have are okay, and they are going to pass. They're not forever. So not getting stuck in emotions. So the next part is how to process our emotions. So what you want to do is you want to name and acknowledge them. So naming an emotion is very important because it gives us control. It makes us, once we understand something, we feel like we have more control over it. So it's the same idea as why a lot of people are scared of the dark, because we can't see, so we don't know how to deal with something because we can't see what's going on. Whereas if we're naming it and going back to being specific about what it is we're feeling, it's easier to control. We have a better understanding of what it is we're dealing with and how to deal with it. I left this definition here for you. Oops. Also, the important thing is you want to acknowledge. You want to acknowledge what it is you're feeling, not just brush it off. So not being like, I'm anxious, whatever, I'm sad, whatever. Just move on. You can't be sad. It's stupid to be sad. You don't want to be doing that. You want to acknowledge it. Name it. So you're being specific so you can see it, so you can better understand it, but then also acknowledging that you have it. And it's okay to have those emotions. And a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but sometimes when we're younger, we're told, no, it's not okay to cry. Buck up, be strong, you got this. And it really doesn't give a lot of allowance for us to feel what it is we're feeling. It's okay to have those feelings. So acknowledging those feelings is actually pretty powerful. The next thing we want to do is link. So that is the part of feeling something and then trying to understand maybe what brought this feeling on. So I feel this way because is a good statement to figure out what it is. So then that way we can recognize if a certain person, when we're around a certain person, we feel uncomfortable or intimidated. Oh, it's that person that I feel that around. So that way when we do have to interact with that person, we can deal with it better and we're more prepared for it so it doesn't throw us off guard, because sometimes emotions can hit us and take us off guard and we lose a little bit of control. So linking those. And then the third part is deciding what to do with those emotions. So what you can do is sometimes I may want to punch someone in the face, but I'm not going to because that's not very helpful. And so what we need to be doing is once we've acknowledged and named it, we've given it that space, we've almost let it move through our body. We felt it out. I feel this way because, and then either letting go, moving on, or setting it aside to deal with it later. Sometimes you can be in the middle of something, say you're in class, and you are sad and you get hit by this sad, deep feeling, but you have to write a quiz. And so you can't really deal with it. So acknowledge, and then I'm going to deal with this later. But then also making sure you do pick that emotion up later and you do deal with it. Because if you don't deal with emotions, they don't really go away. So this little example from Journey to Wellness is the traffic lights. So emotions are signals. So they're trying to tell us something. So stop, pause, allow yourself to feel that emotion. Don't just push it away. And that's where you would do, so the example of I'm feeling sad, but I'm in class, you want to name it, you want to acknowledge it, you want to feel it, I am sad. I don't have time or the capacity maybe to deal with this fully, so I'm just going to move on right now, but I do want to come back to that because that's big. So breathe, take a few slow, deep breaths. And what that does is you need the front of your brain to process emotions. The back is not the thinking part. So when you're taking those slow breaths, it's actually telling your mind, I'm not in danger. We don't need the back of our mind. I need the front of our mind. And so that deep breath then gets you to the processing piece. And sometimes even just naming the emotion. What am I feeling? You're asking yourself a question. And to answer that question, you need the front of your brain. So it kind of brings you back to that, okay, I'm in control, I'm managing, I'm regulating, and I'm processing these emotions. So then the last thing is choosing how you react and what you do next. So with the example that I used earlier, the hurt example, I feel hurt, I may want to run away and cry, which might be what I do. I might go and I might just cry, and it's okay to cry and it's okay to feel that. Or I might be like, I'm in the middle of the class, I can't really go away and cry right now. So I'm just gonna feel it out. I'm gonna breathe. I'm gonna take a minute and I'm gonna breathe this one out. And I'm gonna try and calm myself down. And that could be what I do with it. So choosing how to react. There's a few other, oh yeah, and this is the point I kind of already brought up, which is to process, we need to get back to the front of the brain. And so naming can bring you back to the front of the brain, and that's deep breath slows us down. So when the back of the brain is triggered and it's like, hey, we're in danger, I need to take over, it does fast breathing, so you're ready to fight, flight, or freeze. And when you slow it down, it tells that system, oh, I'm no longer in danger, I can do slow breaths. So then here's some other good little images to show you how to process emotions. So over here, acknowledging the emotion, linking the emotion, and then letting go. So emotions, sometimes we can get stuck in them or we can suppress them. So suppressing is when we don't deal with it. And the thing when we don't, actually, I'll get to that later. Stay tuned. And then emotions can get processed. And so letting go, place one hand on your tummy, one hand on your chest, take a deep breath, exhale, and say, I let it go. So you don't want to jump to the letting go stage right away. You need to acknowledge and you need to name, because if you're just jumping to the letting go, it wasn't processed. Part of processing is the naming, the acknowledging. Why did I feel this? Feel it out and then let it go. So here's another good one. How am I feeling? I am feeling this. I notice my body is feeling this. Some thoughts I am having are, one helpful thing I could do would be this. I am working on no longer, say, yelling at people. I am proud of myself for feeling this emotion, for going through this process. Another one over here is, this is just a good one for letting go. So I choose to let it go. And it reminds you that you are in control. And when you're up here, it's easier to control. And so remembering that you get to let it go and you are in control. The emotion isn't in charge of you. And so here are some good ones to let go of: guilt, anger, worry, anxiety, fear, self-doubt. And then remembering that feelings fade and emotions come and go, and that this isn't forever, and that this doesn't then decide who I am. It's a feeling, and you get to choose your actions, and that you are in control. And that's part of emotional regulation, is remembering and getting yourself to be in control. And then just a side step, talking about anger. So anger can tend to be a really big emotion, but anger is also known as a secondary emotion. So an iceberg is, and I'll read this out because I'm not sure you can fully see this that well, but icebergs are large pieces of floating ice, and usually only 10%. So the tip of the iceberg is what you'll be seeing, whereas the rest of the iceberg is underwater. So anger is a secondary emotion because it's what we're seeing, but there's so much behind it. There's other emotions typically hidden under the surface of anger. Anger just tends to feel a lot safer to feel than maybe I feel rejected or embarrassed or sad. It feels safer to be mad than it does to feel really sad, because sometimes those are heavy and it's hard to feel out emotions. So just remembering, if there's anger, maybe asking yourself, is there something behind this anger? What else am I feeling? Am I really mad at this person, or am I really hurt? And looking for that. So then also remembering, you don't need to be afraid of anger or shy away from it. Anger, like all emotions, are signals from our body. They are messages. So remember to ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me and what do I need right now? And so it's really just, oh, something's happening. It's a signal. What do I do with this signal? Not this anger then decides everything I do. Okay, so I kind of hinted to it earlier, but why processing your emotions is important. I'm going to use the analogy of walking through mud. So let's say that you're headed to school, you're headed to class, and you're walking and you step in this big mud puddle. And this big mud puddle is a big, heavy emotion. So what you can do is you can deal with the mud and go, oh, I have to go to school. Oh, there's some grass over here. I'm going to wipe my shoes off on the grass and try and get the mud off, and make sure that I don't get mud everywhere else. The other option is spread the mud everywhere. This would be pushing the emotion aside, not dealing with it. And so then you just keep walking. You don't even stop. You're like, oh, that hit me, not going to deal with it. I'm just going to spread the mud everywhere. So then you go into class and mud is there. And you go home and mud is everywhere. And it's because if you think of the example of anger, if I'm not dealing with anger, I'm going to have this anger, kind of the mud is still going to be everywhere. And in all my interactions, my anger or mud is going to be present. And how I treat people might be a little bit angry. And you do carry that with you if you don't process it and give it that time to feel it and then move on or let it go. The other option is to sit and stay. Sometimes you want to sit there and you want to be like, this sucks. I stepped in mud. I stepped in a big emotion, angry. And you just sit there and you don't get out of it and you just let anger be what you feel and what your day is about. I'm having a bad day. I'm angry. And that's not very helpful either. The best option you would do if you stepped in a pile of mud is deal with it. You kind of wipe the stuff off. And you may still have mud there. You're still going to have to feel out that emotion, but you want to get rid of the mud and deal with the mud and move on with your day. So next time we're going to talk about a few other areas of emotion, and we'll get into a bit more of emotional intelligence. But for now, that's all we're going to talk about, and I will see you next time. I hope this was helpful.